Oh, I need a motion that we reconvene at open session, please.
I'll move.
Second, all in favor? There, we're back. Do I need a motion to discuss it or?
For the draft municipal budget, put it on the floor and then we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Having a motion to discuss.
Well, just the draft, you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So just you put on the floor that the draft 2026 municipal budget for the township of Stirling Rawdon containing a municipal tax levy in the amount of $8,147,101 representing an increase of 13.8% be approved. Just move her in second or put it on the floor so we can discuss it.
I move.
So,
All in favor?
no,
No.
no vote.
I don't want that. We'll discuss for the time. Okay, thank you. All right.
Okay, thank you, worship, and welcome that members of council and senior staff, and the members of the public, and I apologize for having my back to you. However, the number of people won't see very much on camera anyway, because this is all gonna be, you're gonna see the budget that's gonna be online. So it has taken quite a bit to get to today's budget, and I would like to thank all the staff that have been assisting to try and get through the numbers. Special thank you to Val Nesbitt, our acting treasurer this time, that's helped with a lot of the information and calculations that go into what we have for tax rates. And especially thank you to each of the directors or the managers that have helped with the information, the details of the budget. So the budget book has been prepared, and it's been circulated with the agenda, as well as there's some paper copies for anybody that would like a copy. It is a draft. As indicated in the resolution, it's 13.8, and actually there's been a couple of minor adjustments, so it's actually a 13.9% increase, so apologies for the extra point. But we're hoping that council will have some recommendations after we walk through the budget and get some background on it, so that we can make some adjustments, because we know that that's not optimum, but staff has done a lot of cutting and a lot of changing, and we'll walk through what some of the things are that has already been taken out of the budget. The book itself, it has got, it's just a high level summary. We're not going to go into the details. The staff does have details if there's any questions on some of the information that's in some of the different line. One of the things this year, though, I wanted to just start with an opening statement to tell you is that we've got a few things that are going on. So we've got we've got increased wage and benefit costs, which is typical with our economy. But we also have debt repayments from previous year's capital. So this budget is attempting to build some reserves so that we can stop financing some of that equipment and some of the major projects that are happening in Stirling Rawdon, so that we can start to pay as we go. Not 100%, but we've got some major projects that we will be funded for the next 10 years, like the downtown infrastructure project that was done, and some major project that's coming up that we obviously can't finance up front. We're going to have to borrow some money for that, but we're trying to make sure that we keep our debt levels low, because the cost of borrowing adds to the costs of the taxes as well. We're not the only municipality like this. This is similar to many other municipalities in across Ontario. And we've got other costs adding, which is just operational costs such as utilities, materials, contracted services. So other costs that we typically have, we rely on to try to help keep our budget low. They're also increasing, even the cost of fuel. We are also building a long-term financial strategy. So staff is working on, and we've already presented it with a few of the other budgets that feed into this. So we have external budgets that come from the arena and the building inspection, bylaw, library. We're already starting to build out some 10-year capital plans for renewal of vehicles, building, things like that, things that we know are going to cost, that are there anyway. And by building out those 10-year capital plans, we'll be bringing a fulsome one back to the council, so you can take a look at it and see where we're growing and where we're going. And that's the other part of this budget too. Growth has been a bit of a problem. Yeah, we don't think, we know it's not going to be a problem in the future, but with this particular budget, 2025 is kind of a slow year for actually getting anything completed. Because of the economy, so we don't have growth that's gonna help us keep the budget down. We know, there's lots of building permits that are out there and there's going to be growth and we're gonna have an increased assessment that's going to happen, but it's just not in the 2026 budget, so. We built in, a portion for supplemental taxes, so we do know that there will be some that is coming in. We're hoping it's higher, but we can't project on that. The other thing too with that growth will also come development charges, so which is going to help us with some of the major projects that we're going to be building, so. And that's another side that we're not gonna talk too much about today. But that does lead into fees and charges, so development charges is one of our major fees and charges, but there is, and you'll see at the end of this, there's some things that are gonna have to come back to council to maybe help us out through 2026. And that would be a review of all the fees and charges to see what we're paying for things and what users are paying to help us see if we can bring some of these numbers down. So I'm hoping for a better picture in 2027, but we're gonna deal with 2026 today, and then I'll see if we can maybe make it a little bit more palatable. So I'm going to skip through, so if you're in the budget book, you'll see each of the different sections that's been highlighted. So we're at page 6 of the municipal tax revenues. And if there is anything that anybody wants to stop me on, or if there's any questions or concerns on the from staff or council, please let me know. I'm just looking at you, I apologize for that. So the budget is presented in the same manner in which our books are. So we start with our municipal revenues, we walk through each of the different departments and the sub-departments. So the municipal tax revenues are overarching, so they feed into everything, they're not specific. And the main components of our overall municipal tax revenue is the municipal tax levy. You'll see on page 6 is that the levy is actually listed as 0 right now, because what it is, we will fill that number in once we get to a final number, and then we'll know exactly what the tax rate increase is. But the proposal in this budget is $8.1 million. Last year's number was 7.4. Sorry, I have to pull that number up from another page. So 7.158. Also part of our municipal tax revenues is not just the regular tax levy, which is the amount that's on the tax bill. We also have grants in lieu, so those are like the post office and some other small organizations that are actually they're funded differently. And so there's not much money in that, that's 16,500. And then we've shown the tax supplementals and write-offs, so that's why I was talking about the growth. But we also have some tax write-offs, but that's what's that $82,000 is that amount that's estimated for this year. Then again, as I just indicated, there's a minimal assessment growth from 2025 to 2026, so that you can see in 2024, that number was a lot higher, it was 177,000. But we didn't have that kind of year, or not projecting that for 2026 at this time. Any questions on those general revenues? Okay, next is our general revenues and expenditures. So this is again non-attributable to any one thing that the township does. This is interest and penalties on taxation is included in here, the OMPF, which is the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. So let me talk first of all, and I'll start with the first in 2025 budget. There was a $200,000 surplus that was anticipated coming from the previous year. We do not have any anticipation of a surplus for 2026. So that's been removed. So that 200,000 doesn't help us very much with our rate increase. And now we're not projecting a deficit either. We're projecting 0. Eventually we want to get to the point where if there's a surplus, we put it in a reserve. If there's a deficit, we take it out of that reserve and it doesn't affect our budget. We just, each year we would cover it. And usually those numbers are less than $200,000, but If something, because what we'll do is if there is a substantial surplus, it's usually because job hasn't been done, and so we'll put it into a reserve, so we don't try and tax for it again, we put them to the side. The interest and penalties on taxes, that's increased from last year's budget. We've bumped it up just a little bit. Our tax arrears are growing. And as a tax that the treasurer can attest to, there's more people that are not paying their taxes, but also the amount of taxes is growing. So if you were previously paying $2,000 on your tax bill, then now you're paying $3,000 on your tax bill. Over the years, it's increased. So if you missed a few payments or a couple of months, then that's how that interest grows. So the estimate is just a better estimate as to what we've actually been collecting each year. The Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, included in your package, I'm not going to go through it in detail, is the letter that's come from the government. So they did increase the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund by $42,000. The mayor and I had a delegation at Roma, and we talked to the Ministry of Finance in regards to this number. And it was originally in 2010, that says 2020 in the report, but it is 2010. That O1PF used to be 1.5, almost $1.6 million. And they changed the formula, and now we dropped down to again, the 1052, 1,052,000. So the estimate over that from 2010 up till now is the township's actually lost $7 million in that grant. And as I indicated before, our actual levy is $7 million. So that's, we were asking the government to not give us $7 million, that would be awesome, but to at least get us back to what it was in 2010, get us back to that 1.5, $1.6 million mark. But of course, we didn't get an answer.
So there's no answer to that.
No.
Just the driving. It's been brought up on numerous occasions. Just to put it in perspective, Cree is there for 2.5. Same funding.
Why don't they like us?
It's the foreign, it's a problem with the foreign, it's more important.
And that's why I gave you all of the background, so you can see, like, it is actually a formula about having so much rural, what your economy is, average income, and those types of things are all built into that formula, but I think what our issue is really to do with our average income, is we're being pulled into larger urban centers, and so that means that it looks like we have people making a lot more money here than what they actually are. But anyway, that's Statistics Canada, which is another component, so it's a couple of different external agencies. So there's no money there, but there is a small increase. We did get the 42,000 that's been brought into this number. So overall, so that changed the I believe it's it says negative 10%. And that's because it's been from the $1.4 million. So these are negative numbers. So $1.4 million in revenue is dropping down to the $1.2 million. And that is the 200,000 that we're not getting from a previous year's surplus. Questions? Council.
Paper copy?
I just sent some to the printer for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying to follow the poll very strongly.
Okay.
So there is a cover page, we've got the whole packet coming. Actually, Bob, you can keep yours. We have some coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. For all three.
So council, this number hasn't changed very much. The $11,000 actually pertains to the municipal election this year. The municipal election is an estimated of to cost $30,000, so that's a rough number. But the clerk has indicated, based on the software system and any other mailouts, etc., that should cover us for this year. In order to reduce the amount that we've got levied, what we've done is there's an administration reserve, and we believe that that's coming from previous years ISIP, some money that was left over. So we're going to allocate $20,000 towards that 30 this year. So the net cost for the election would be $10,000. And then the plan is that in future years, if we know it's gonna be $30,000, we will allocate a portion each year. We'll build up a reserve so that there's no hit in the year every time there's an election. And then the other costs that are included in here really is just the small net increase of council members' wages and benefits, which comes to the $1,300. And that's everything, council. Questions? Administration. Again, this is summary. There's lots of GL accounts in here, but just to give you an overall summary of what's in here, most of this is the first portion of this is the revenues. So these revenues are from user fees. There's not very much in user fees. There's about $20,000. Bank interest, and that number has been declining because we've been paying so many bills. We don't have as much interest that's actually in 2025, it was down a bit, and we anticipate because of because of the bills that we're paying out, including some of the debt, that will actually have a reduced bank interest, but we did bring it up a little bit because it hadn't been changed in a couple of years. And then we also get an allocation from from the Building Inspection Service Board, so the BISB, because we do a lot of work for them. One of our staff does most of the work for, building permits and allocations and preparing reports, etc. So we do get an allocation back from the board to the township. Also included in here is expenditures, and those include wages and benefits of all of our administration staff, costs for technical hardware and software, and those numbers have grown. We have a new leasing cost for computers. We also have included in here training, general office costs, insurance, and insurance is actually, it was this year, it wasn't increased, so it's about the same as what it was in previous years. And building maintenance is in here as well. There was as a $291,000 increase though, so even though we have brought in new revenues, we still have an increase of $291,000 in the administration budget. And this primarily is attributable to the staffing complement changes in 2025. And that's the main reason for that increase. That's a big one. That's a big one. That's 37%. Medical. There's no increase here. Well, sorry, there's actually a little bit of a decrease. This is the only thing we have right now is for medical, and this year that we're expecting is just committee costs. If there in previous years, there's been and I defer to the mayor on this, but there's been costs for physician recruitment as well as for billing for medical facilities. We have a separate board that meets, and this is just including the board, but I think there's no anticipated costs. That's covered by the.
If we are fortunate, the county covers recruited costs. The only costs we may, and hopefully, it will be some, the equipment that we're not fortunate. And there's some.
Well, Joint Fire Services Board. Let me get the chief to do the funding here, so I'll go over the budget quickly, and then the chief may want to fill in a little bit of detail about what's going on. So the Joint Fire Services Board, just for those that are listening that aren't aware of how this works, is that the Joint Fire Services Board is a shared cost scenario with the municipality of Tweed, and this is for our full-time fire chief, fire prevention officer, and fire training officer. So those numbers, that includes what we have in this portion of the budget. It was originally reviewed and approved by that Joint Fire Services Board. So that includes the mayor and the deputy mayors of both Stirling Rawdon as well as Tweed. And the fire chief attends and two CAOs from both municipalities, and we met and reviewed the budget back in November. there will be an adjustment to the original budget, and that's because we changed the increased number of staffing hours for the full time. And so there will be a slight adjustment to what was approved, but what you're seeing in this budget right now, this is the one that we actually, this is what Tweed is gonna have to take a look at. So it's got that extra 10,000. And there's the board revenues, user fees, which is, like I said, that's just, we show the full budget and we bill back Tweed. So that's all the user fees that are in that section. The board expenses includes the wages and benefits, computer leases, vehicle maintenance, training, fire prevention expenses, and those are all, and then there's also the capital components. So what happens is we split it, like I said, 50-50 to Stirling Rawdon, except that there was a hiccup in 2025, and we're not sure what exactly how it came to be, but the amount for that was attributable to Stirling Rawdon was 166,000. And the amount attributable to Tweed was 207. The budget. At the end of the day, we will pick up 50-50, so it's just a budgeting problem. But the problem we have this year is it shows a 49% increase because we're going from that amount that was too low in the budget to what it should be in 2026. Sorry if I haven't explained that very well.
So, Shelley, just so I'm clear, so are we actually repaying the amount? Like, did we owe Tweed?
No, sorry, the actuals will be fine, it's budget, that's the problem. So we will actually bill Tweed 50%, I don't know if you want to try to explain this better, but we will bill them exactly 50% of whatever the expenses are. But when the budget came to be presented, it wasn't presented at a 50% cost to Stirling Rawdon. So we have to jump from what was in the budget to what it should be in 2026. It's an error in the estimations for the budget. It's not that there's
Doesn't have
any.
anything to do with the actuals.
Correct. There is one, in the capital portion, there is one vehicle. I don't know, I'll defer to the fire chief if you want to add anything else that's going on this year in the Georgia Fire Services Board.
No, so there's just the mayor and council, staff and community. We've had this year, there's been a pile of training you'll see going forward. There's our certification this year is going through, so our training staff, all of us have been helping and pitching to get everybody certified before the July 1st deadline. So we've had put a lot of, I know Rich has been, right now we're running 3 courses consecutive, like weekends and stuff right now, so there's a pile of time put in right now for all that. The other thing is Shelley speaking to the vehicle there is to get Rich back and forth from training, and we don't want him taking his own vehicle basically and hauling gear that's contaminated from light burns and all that kind of thing back in his own vehicle and stuff. So that's be for the purchase of the other vehicle to get back and for him to transport back and forth on Tweed, because he does work back and forth from Tweed a lot, and the Eastern County Training Tower down in Trenton. So he does a lot of travel back and forth that, and we do he uses our vehicles when or not, but we're all seem to be busy all over with fire prevention and stuff and calls or whatever. But going forward this year, there's a lot of Sean's going to be busy with fire prevention, a pile of upkeep, especially now. We've been getting a lot of input right now from the CO. That's a new thing with your Martins, the CO program right now. So we're going to probably run something this earlier in the spring or whatever for the CO systems. Everybody's required to have a CO in their house, and that is we've got continuous calls daily for the CO stuff. So anything besides that, I think Shelley's pretty much covered as in budget. There's like I said, it's going to be a busy year with the trainings. We tie it up greatly with that, and we'll till after July we'll be get a breath of air after that, hopefully. But we do have a lot of stuff to training going forward for our staff that new members coming on. Besides the certification, there's extra requirements now for pump ops training, and the other one is with our DZs. We're working on the DZ program right now, and extrication as well too. So that's heading up before the end of the year. We want to get that in place. So
One of the, so people understand, one of the changes in that was the complement of staffing up until June.
Yeah.
Which was only part-time. When we hit the additional requirements of became apparent, we were supposed to be able to keep up with the training and meeting the provincial requirements. Rich was increased to a full-time position. So that was partly reflected in this budget, but it's totally reflected in this year's budget. Not totally reflected in this one.
So that's the Joint Fire Services Board, and that's exactly why that one has gone up. So the next, the other thing just to mention is the Joint Fire Services Board, that they did a 10-year, that's what I was talking about, a 10-year capital plan, so that's the vehicle, so we're just talking about full-time fire positions at this point in time, and each of them have vehicles that are going to be replaced at some point in time, so they're built into a capital plan, but we've also got it built in, so we can put some money aside to pay for those vehicles. And that is the vehicles, lights, radio, and
Yeah.
everything else that's in those vehicles. So page 13 is the actual, is our fire. This is this is the Stirling Rawdon fire, so excluding those 3 full-time that we split with Tweed. This is the cost for the volunteer firefighters, the building maintenance for the 2 halls, the fire equipment and fire vehicles. And this is the overall, the net cost for the fire department. It is decreasing, but this is due to new revenues that are now being budgeted that were not included in 2025. So in the 2025 budget, there was no estimate that we could see for the burn permits. And they are $18,000 a year is what we bring in from those burn permits. So now we've budgeted for that. And also there is a projected an accident recovery cost. So there's a service that's available. The chief and I were talking about, and we're going to get them to talk to us a little bit about how they can recoup accident costs. This is standard across Ontario, is that you can get these firms, they act on the township's behalf, so it's not our staff that's doing it. And they would go out, if there was an accident in our township and there's costs related to the fire, then they would go and talk to the insurance companies, not to the individuals, but getting the money, getting a portion of those costs back. So we just built in $3,000 this year, just because it's a new service, we don't really know exactly, and also we prefer there were no accidents, so we prefer that there's no revenue, but anyway, we're at least gonna engage the service, and we'll bring a contract back to council to consider, so we can have further conversation, but we built it into the budget at this point. The other thing is we've also we've got a transfer coming in from reserves, and that is operational, that's not capital in nature. So as the chief had indicated, we budgeted last year for $40,000 in training, which is high, but that's normal because of the with our new legislation for the training that's required, but we only spent 20,000. So we're gonna put the 20 that's unspent in 25 into an operating reserve and pull it back out so that there can be more. So that training that was originally anticipated in 25, it can also be added to the 40,000 that we're doing in 2026. So that's what that reserve is about. The other reserves, when we transfer them, generally they are capital in nature and they're for specific vehicles or equipment. What we've done here, you can see in the small blue section, is we've broken out the different areas, and which you may want to speak to any of these, but there is the fire administration and training, that's training for volunteers, the building maintenance, the fire equipment, the fire vehicles, and then a separate line for capital. So, and then on the next page, it actually breaks out the capital. But do you want to speak to it?
Council, so we, just one of the highlights in here is probably is our fire equipment. We have, if we've got it down this year too, we've also changed, you'll see on the next page when we go into capital. I'll explain that to you, so you'll know what the number dropped there. But our also thing is our equipment, it's our fire trucks and maintenance of our fire trucks. We have all of our units and stuff coming up here. We do our regular yellow sticker safeties and rust check, rust proofing and that type of thing. Also have a couple this year that are also due for tires on them and due to the, until regulations and stuff, they've dropped the years of service on tires. I know they have a lot of, so what we are going to use some of the tires that are in this thing here, and we can still use them on other equipment, but they can't be on the fire truck for the year service on the, allowed on the truck, so there is was a little increase in that. You'll see coming forward in our budget that will show, that there is one of our trucks that does need, that was actually two of the trucks that are gonna be requiring tires replaced on. One definitely needs, and the other one is we're looking into that, and we'll discuss that further with council, but also with building maintenance and stuff with both both fire stations here. We have upkeep costs and stuff. That's your furnaces, all that kind of thing, furnaces, windows, any kind of repairs to our equipment. And we also have there's regular maintenance and stuff is all through that. And your, like I said, and we also have your utilities, heat, hydro, all that stuff is gone. It is all included in that budget line. So there hasn't been a ton of change in that, but just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. That is part of that there. And then the capital, like I said, you will see in the capital number here seems to increase, but we've took it as you'll see on the next page is that our bunker gear, that we've always did that as an operating cost, bunker gear, helmets and boots, but they're a 10-year item, so we keep them. They're good for 10 years in service. And we moved that into a capital separate account. You'll see in the next page, so that's why you see some numbers. The capital cost increase there, but it's actually going into a pooled asset with and the other one there too is with that is going to be your fire hose that we do, so regular replacement on some of the fire hose that has to be able to be for out of service date. So we put that all into a pooled asset, so it's actually, you'll see that as a capital yearly thing. You'll see there's bunker gear that we have to replace. We've got it set up so we can keep up with our 10-year plan with all the bunker gear, helmets and boots. So you'll see that as a separate item. I think it's a capital item, not as a operating item anymore in the budgets. Oh, sorry, yeah, and if you look up there, like I said, on the thing, we have for this year, we've got into grant sale, we've got $55,233. We've also received a donation of $7,075. The SCBA washer is one I've been talking to you about treatment. For the public that doesn't know that, it's a machine that will wash our SCBAs and stuff, so like the air packs that we wear on our back, so when they go in the fire, they're very hard to clean after they get out. Our helmets, boots, gloves, all that stuff, we have no proper way to wash them right now. So we've received a grant from fire prevention or fire protection grant from the government to actually going to cover the whole cost of that piece of equipment. So that's the $55,000. You'll see the SCBA washer at $52,000. That has been totally covered by our Ontario government grant. You'll see the medical equipment. We received funding for new monitors for to treat patients when we come in. We received a donation from the Royal Canadian Legion for the $7,000 to cover them, and new suctions for suction to if you get something for a SCBA and for a medical call, and we get a suction, so they've provided all that equipment for us for that at no cost. And if you look at the equipment general, that's just a replacement of older units, electric positive pressure fan and airbags, just due to years of service. That is another 12,850. And then you'll see the equipment BP in that about 24,500 to replace 5 sets of gear, 5 sets of boots, 5 helmets. So basically that with a firefighter, so there's 24,500, and you'll see where I've got the equipment, hoses and equipment pooled at $44,050 for the hoses, and that's just in basically wear and tear on hoses and stuff that doesn't pass testing. So you'll see in the reserves, we put in a contribution of reserves at $85,000. I'm working on right now, we've got to finish the 10-year plan for our trucks and most of our equipment. We're probably gonna have to increase that years coming because the price of trucks and stuff and gear has gone up astronomically. If you see the price of any automotive product or anything like that is increased greatly from the last stuff that we've bought. And we will have equipment that's going to need replaced in the next 10 years. So we're probably going to have to increase that over the upcoming year, but the balance this year, we've got put in for 85,000. So we'll look at our total net for capital this year would be 123,907.
Just to follow up, so the original draft of this budget, we had that at, I believe it was $125,000 was the contribution to reserves, which we thought that would be reasonable to sort of get us a little bit more of a pay as you go instead of having, and it's not, it's to reduce the amount of financing for some of this equipment. But with the increases that we're seeing in the property taxes, we rolled that back to 85,000. And it's being recommended is that we keep the transfers to reserves that we've got and to try and start to pay for things and build the money up so we can pay. We get better pricing for things if we have the cash instead of having to borrow. And it keeps us away from leases, which has been done in the past, which has got a higher interest rate on it as well, so that's just.
Well, a quick question for Derek. Stirling Rawdon has 2 fire halls, which means we have to keep frontline equipment in both of them.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what a typical fire hall population services? And Tweed's got a larger population than Blake Hall.
So through that, Bob, is something we're looking at down through the future to do is probably a master fire plan to figure to do a review of our whole area and everything. Tweed does have one, like a bigger population for that. We do use a lot of automatic aid for Tweed, like at Stone Mills, we have automatic aid agreements with Stone Mills, with Madoc Township, Limerick and stuff, so we do use that services a lot more on that, which and everybody doesn't realize what an automatic aid versus a mutual aid. Mutual aid is something that we can reciprocate back and forth, which we do have agreements where we do that with them. But the ones like in Stone Mills and Madoc Township, a separate thing, like go and do a medical call. They can be in Marlbank quicker than I can, so they'll actually do that. They charge a fee for that service every time they want to do a call. So if we have 10 calls, I'll get 10 bills a year from one that municipality back to the fire department, and that's basically for that's what they do that with. But in the service, like I said, that we can do an assessment with a fire master plan, it's an actual what we need required. We've actually dropped back, so one of our trucks. Basically, this year will be coming out of this 20-year service, so it won't be a frontline and one tanker that we have at the North Hall. So basically, we'll only have one frontline pumper at each station instead of having the 2 like a pumper tanker type thing. So we brought back that on that. There's it is, but I think it's still pumped and tested. But yeah, it's depending on what you get. I mean, you get an area. I wish I had another, sometimes another station to by week because it makes it tough. We do use our mutual aid partners, they're very good, but we also use our automatic partners a lot in the south, so. That's one of the things, but we can look and like I said, from a fire master plan would give us an actual thing, and that's something we'll bring forward, not this year, but probably in the next coming years, we'll wanna do a master fire plan for our community, so.
Just like wondering, is there a thing of saying that we only had one frontline truck, that it's gonna respond to every call? Is this something that has ever been done, like, because we're Stirling Rawdon, we say that one frontline truck's gonna respond to every call, but the other trucks are gonna go too?
Yeah, the thing is,
It does.
yeah, I mean, it's the backup. The biggest problem is if that frontline pumper goes down for your whole community, it's to have the second, like I have in Tweed, I have 2 frontline, I always have 2, like 1 for
Right.
backup. And we have in many occasions where, especially you get weather like we've got right now, have one go out on you and then you're waiting for 15 minutes for another mutual aid partner to come in, and it's just a liability thing. I mean, that's something we're looking into, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah.
Don't mean to interrupt, but technically we could, how we could get around it is build a fire hall in the middle of the township. Right? We only have to have one frontline truck to
Yeah,
build
in your township, yeah, and yeah, that's basically
in the municipality.
in the municipality, yes, yeah,
Okay, no, I'm just curious, if that's something we possibly could do, but.
Yeah.
But
down the road, yeah.
I understand the backup.
Yeah, no, that's
You
the thing.
do have the backup.
Yeah, we have it now.
Just that it's not called the
That's, yeah,
frontline vehicle.
yeah, no, that's right, yeah,
Sometimes our backup's better than our new vehicles.
yeah.
We've
Yeah.
experienced in the past,
Yes,
right?
yeah, no, new equipment stuff that's.
Yeah.
older
I got a
stuff.
question for the chief. Last week, there was a mess on the 401. And I noticed where Stirling Rawdon was standby.
Yes.
What does that cost us? I know it's necessary.
So not there, we just stand by, they'll basically they would respond, we would get first response to that, they would call us, nobody sat at the hall or do whatever, but we're on standby that we know if there's a call that comes in for our southern neighbor part of it. We would cover, we'd cost, or give mutual aid to them immediately, we'd get a first call to it, as where before we still do cover them regardless. What they would call us on a secondary basis, or whatever, but if on that situation where all their units are tied up out there. They would call us in as first, we get the first call from dispatch, because we have the same dispatcher. They'd call us before they would call in, because they know they're not available, so that's a standby, we're on standby to cover them immediately, like Bill Kills or that area, same thing with Belleville was doing for them, they did a couple calls for them. In the southern eastern area there, that Belleville had to go run a call for them during that time, so. So basically, it's just mutual aid as we do normally, but we would get first call versus second call to the mutual aid, so.
Further questions? Okay.
Next, which is, that's to begin, this is emergency management. It's mandatory and this is a mandatory requirement. This year we got estimated was lower than what the original budget was, but it was for a tabletop exercise.
Tabletop exercise.
That can be scheduled later.
Yeah, that we'll be doing that later on this year, yeah, or hopefully earlier this year. Summertime. Yeah.
The next section is food services. So there's two parts to food services. First of all, there is the OPP billing, which is an additional cost for us. And I'll speak to that. And then the other part is for the previous police service that we had in Stirling Rawdon. There's an annual loan repayment. So with the OPP annual billing attached in your package is a costing that shows how the breakdown is. It actually shows number of calls, and that has been circulated as well. So there is when the calculations were done for 2026, there was a large increase, so they set a cap of 11%. So we actually only are getting 11% of what the total cost should be. But we are, in order to even offset that, we're using $50,000 for a reserve. So just a little bit of history. In just after COVID, the provincial government said it mandatory is that there will be no increases in wages for about, I think it was 1.5% is all wages were to be capped. There was a court case that happened, and this resulted in that it was overturned, and so the agreements that would have happened, and this is with the OPP and other healthcare services and things like that were all affected. So their agreements that they had, they were all overturned, and so there were a number of increased costs in wages and benefits for those services. So in 2025, you would have seen a billing that came in. The original billing would have been astronomical, like, I don't know, 20% or something like that came in. There was so much pushback from the municipalities that the government came and gave sort of it's not really a grant, they gave a reduced rate. So it was just to kind of cover the fact that the bills were going up so high based on the police salary, so for OPP. Here in the township, $50,000 of that reduction was placed into a reserve, knowing that in future years, we're going to get hit again with another increase. So that 50,000 is in reserve, and then we have the 11% cap. Because of this year's budget, we'd use all of that 50,000. Probably not optimum. It would have been probably better to take 25% in 2026 and use 25%, 50% of that 50,000 in each year, 25,000 each year. But again, we're sitting with a 13.8% increase, so we've taken the full 50,000 out of that reserve to help us offset the OPP bill. And because we are really not like other municipalities that have this other legacy loan. So because of the police service that changed back in 2018, there was a loan that came to do the buyout for the transition from the local police service to the OPP. So that is also built into this budget as well. And I believe it's 10-year loan. So I don't have this.
There's a couple more years, something coming first one.
A couple of 2 more years, or
That's just trying to the numbers, but yeah. So, I mean, next year we're gonna end up with another, whatever, 11% OPP costing that we don't have a reserve for in 2027. But again, we've got other issues that we're dealing with our budget this year, just to get us to 13.8. So that's why staff is recommending that we use the full reserve for this year. And then we also have benefits from the retired members of the previous force. The benefits is part of the cost of the end agreement. And really discussion.
Okay, it is fine.
It's last year. And I then hopefully the ways in for religious will be able to catch up in more Jason.
Through your worship, just to emphasize, what CAO has indicated that $50,000 use of the reserve. It immediately will impact your 2027 budget, because you will no longer have $50,000 in reserve. So in addition to the increase that you'll see from the OPP, you'll also be looking at a tax impact of the $50,000 that we're using in 2026, because it will no longer be there. So just a cautionary tale for next year.
Thank you.
Conservation authorities. Call on our manager of environmental services for one portion of this, so just to give you overall the conservation authority, so they're external budgets that come to us. From the three authorities, and they're listed below, and the details of their budgets, and we have representatives from council on each of those different authorities. But the actual budgets are attached at the back of the budget binder, just if you want to take a look at some of the detail that's coming through. But at the end of the day, it looks like we've got a very small decrease from previous years, so it must have been a special project that was built into one of the budgets. But the conservation authorities, what we've done is we've taken a couple of different things in here. So there's a portion in for, there's a capital portion, there's a new capital item here, and that will speak to that. And there's also, we've moved what used to be the source water protection costs. So source water protection as well is completed by the conservation authorities. It's contracted out to them. And I'll let Matt speak to a little bit more about those two items.
Morning, Mayor and Council. In speaking in regards to the capital item for $25,000, so that stems from conversation with Lower Trent Conservation this past year regarding the Rawdon Creek flood control structure located on the James Street Bridge. The information on the structure is minimal, and there is no operation and maintenance manual associated with this structure. This structure is deemed to be owned by the municipality. So we looked into that a bit further, and we're recommending that we tender a package for an engineering firm to conduct a dam inspection and condition assessment and development. And an operation and maintenance manual for the structure. So we have no background information much on this structure or an ownership of it. And in the past, it had been operated by Lower Trent Conservation, but it's not anymore, so we have to step in. Before we step in, we have to make sure that we have some background information on the structure. Just one other additional item for that is that there is some funding that we can apply for this $25,000, and it's the water and erosion control infrastructure funding. So we'll be applying for grant application for that, hopefully covering a large portion of that expenditure.
And just in the budget, what we've done is there was a reserve for conservation, and so we've applied the $25,000 out of reserve. If we do get the funding, then we will just not use that reserve, that money will stay, so that even if we get the funding, it's not gonna affect our bottom line number, but it'll help us to build reserves, which is interesting.
Is there anything in this budget for the Canadian baskets? Nothing.
Is that going to be part of the study, some of that, or no?
The study will address that whole area.
I know there's a full report in this week's board trend.
Yeah, so the part of the recommendations was to do the repairs on the concrete wall, just downgrading it from the covered bridge. That's what started this whole process of looking into the ownership and the whole scale of the project and what is actually needed. Looking at the wall, it's probably a larger project than just a spot repair, so. Once again, this study will look at all components like that and have a good summarized view of where we need to go with it in future years.
It's for the public, it's a very unusual situation. Flood structures are owned by some conservation authorities and not others. Stirling, unfortunately, controls them but doesn't own them. And having said that, I have no idea what next year's conservation budget is going to look like, because as of October of this year, they are no longer independent authorities.
The other part of this budget is the source water protection, and this is an annual amount. In 2020, well, it's crept up from 24, it was 28,000 up to 37,000. So we brought it at $37,000. This is the source water protection, and I believe that is
So our source water protection is conducted by Lower Trent Conservation, so there's a portion of it for education and outreach. The other portion that we do is the risk management official. So there's our source water protection area is delineated based on risk, so there are different wellhead protection areas. Just branching out from those, there's different risks that are evaluated. So we have risk management official that looks at those risks and develops plans with property owners to mitigate any negative impacts that could put risk on the source water. So that Lower Trent takes care of that for us. It's part of that capital item there.
when they're making adjustments to that. Everything changes for Lower Trent. That's time. Who's actually being contracted?
Yeah, depending on what the structure is gonna look like, you know. Some municipalities take it in-house and have their own risk management official. Whether we look at that or maybe a joint service with other municipalities, there's. Really have to kind of see where things are headed with conservation authority and the overall structure in the future.
Source water. Should it not go to the water budget, not the full budget?
It's
It
typically,
Yeah,
doesn't really affect the rest of the township, it's for the wells.
yeah, it typically is levy based, so it's actually collected by the tax levy. It's not usually included with the water, but we can take a look and see if there is, but generally, you've seen source water in the water budget, it's usually, it's on the
because it affects, any source water, even wells, so if there was a spill somewhere, that affected your groundwater, then it could potentially affect anybody's water, depending on that. So it's always.
Well, I don't think they do it source water. Work back my way, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Where they do own them for the village, for the wells. Cause you come into the source water area, right? So. That's why I'm asking that question.
And it extends well, it's a built,
Still, but it's only for the wells, that's what I'm,
well, it's even for your neighbor's well.
okay, well, you're not getting what I'm saying. Like we all have wells back almost to Martin Run.
Yeah.
Well, there's no source, nothing watching, checking the source back there. Just to include our wells. That's why I asked that question.
So what we want to do though is bring back this plan. So Lower Trent's been working on it, and it, in the sense of that there should be a plan that's brought back to council so that you can actually get more. So if there is something that we should change. And where we should charge it, we can take a look at it that time. I'm pretty sure when we get to the water bill, we might not want to add on to that. We'll talk about water now. You know what you're saying? And then that's on the next page. We talked about that, both of those two items, so not just talking about on page 18, that's the water's protection. The structure, so. Next page, okay, so moving to bylaw enforcement. Again, we're still in protective services. So, and our bylaw enforcement officer is here if there was any questions on it, but it is bylaw enforcement services. Again, this is for the public. It's delivered through bylaw enforcement services board. acronym BESB. Then the cost is split with 5 other municipalities. The net cost in this budget is the township portion. There is a small adjustment this year in the 2026 budget due to wages and benefits. And the board did approve a new vehicle allocation towards reserve for a purchase to be done in 2026. They had originally anticipated that they would replace the vehicle in 2026, sorry, new vehicle purchase in 2027. Typo there. In 2026, they were going to replace the vehicle, but they decided that they're gonna live along with that vehicle for 1 more year, and it's actually the $4,000 is in it, going to a reserve for a replacement of the vehicle in 2027. And if you did want to have any further conversations about that, we can always bring in the bylaw enforcement officer, but there isn't much that's in the budget at all. The actual budget was approved. And I believe it's in one of the sets of minutes, but we can also include it in budget package for the future if you want to see more detail on that. There is some work that's gonna be done this year on, and it will come back to BESB about the review of all of the different bylaws, et cetera. But the costs for review of those will probably end up in the clerk's office, so to say. So, each of the individual municipalities will do those reviews, and then it'll come back to BESB. Hopefully, the plan is that we would, in talking to the other CAOs, we'll try to deliver some bylaws that are similar in nature, so that the bylaw enforcement officer is able to understand and know exactly which bylaws they're dealing with when they go through, 5 different municipalities, 5 different sets of bylaws with multiple topics on each of the bylaws. It's a bit complicated. Questions on bylaw? Building inspection. And again, we didn't ask the chief building official to come today, although he is available if there are any questions. And he can come to a future meeting if there's any questions on the budget, but the building, again, for the public, the building inspection services is delivered through the Building Inspection Services Board, acronym is BISB. The cost is split with amongst 6 municipalities, not 6 other, 5 other. The net cost to the township is 0. And the reason for this is that the revenue from the building permits offsets the cost for the services that are being delivered. So we have 4 full-time in BISB, and all of their wages and benefits and training costs are all offset by any of the building fees, the building permit fees that are brought in, not the development charges. Development charges are separate, but the building permit fees are at a rate that is to cover all of the costs for the inspections for the permits. It also covers the cloud permit software, the membership for OBOA, extensive training that's needed for those officers, and also vehicle costs. So in this particular budget, again, I can bring back more detail, but there is 1 vehicle that's being replaced in 2026, and it's being funded from reserves. And if you have more questions, we can definitely bring them back, but they are a busy department, and they are definitely, this is value for money, and we're hoping that they get busier so that we can bring in some additional assessment, which will help us with future years' budgets, so. Any questions? Animal control. So we have Pierce Animal Control does the service, we have a contract with them. We have to do a further review of their service, and that's the actually we're taking a look at what the contract is with them, but the service mostly is for picking up stray dogs and etc. And so the cost is it's crept up a little bit more this year, so that's why there's a small increase in the money that's coming in. However, there was an adjustment made to some of the revenues and the expenditures that were shown in 2025 budget. Just to be clear, is that this portion of the budget also includes the provincial wildlife damage program. So if there's coyotes that killing cattle and there's a claim that's put in from a farmer, they bring that in here. We do the inspection and we will submit the claim up to the provincial government, the money comes back. And it's to offset the cost for not just the restitution for the farmer or whatever he's lost with that particular animal, but also for our inspection fees. So the net cost for the township should be zero. And that's, like I said, there's a bit of a cleanup as to what was presented in the 2025 budget. So it actually results in a little bit of a decrease in the overall budget here, but it's to do with cleanup of that. It's not in revenues. So protection other, page 22 is kind of a catch-all from what I understand. There is health and safety program. We had budgeted 4,000 for the last couple of years, but we haven't spent it. So it's down, it's been reduced down to $2,500. There is extensive work that's being done on health and safety program, and there may be more costs, but the costs, if it is training for its an individual budget, shouldn't be under this other area. It should be within whatever the department is. So if somebody from administration is getting training, or if someone from the fire department is getting training in health and safety, or public works, then it should be charged back to their budgets. So that's part of the cost of doing operations. So we will probably move this out of this line. This would be for general safety, health and safety supplies, etc., like that, and we can move that into administration. And then last year there was a capital expense that was budgeted here, and that was for a quarry gate installation. Mr. Proposed.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, guests. Yeah, we ended up replacing one gate too because it was damaged. Somebody went ahead and decided to try to tear it off. So the important thing is because of the issues we had with the quarry, and then the other little gate where the yard is there, just always keep that closed, because if the fire department has a major fire where they need water, if somebody's parked vehicles in there, it becomes a problem. So those gates are there strictly for being able to keep the quarry usable for the fire department.
Any questions on? Okay. So then we go to stormwater. If there's a requirement for a break at any time. Yes. Okay, stormwater. So, and manager environment can talk a little bit to this. It's very, again, it's very summarized. So there are no revenues for stormwater. There's just expenditures, and that covers the wages, benefits, curb and gutter cost replacement is in here. And then I'm reading it, supplies for self-retracting lifeline and also a Dixie chopper, and I will let Matt speak to what those are.
Just speaking on some of the expenditures, as Shelley explained, the wages, benefits, curb and gutter repairs, so that's could be anywhere in town that we need to do some small replacement. Self-retracting lifeline, so that is a third of the portion of a portion for the confined space entry equipment. So it's a retrieval lifeline. When our staff are going into confined space entry, it's required for health and safety. So we've split it out in water, sewer, and stormwater. So that's a third portion of $1,900 in stormwater. And the Dixie chopper, it's also a portion as well, with parks, roads, storm, and wastewater. So it's a remote operated lawnmower. It can cut on steep slopes, stormwater ponds, ditches. When we did a demo, we took the unit out to Belleville Road on the steep slope where there's wild parsnip, and we were able to mow that. Previous to that, we sent staff out and they would have to avoid cutting the wild parsnip in terms of the health and safety issues. So then you have all this parsnip that's there, and then you have to wait for it to get sprayed. So this is a safe way that we can manage cutting this parsnip, both on roadside ditches, storm ponds, at our wastewater plant. Different locations, so once again, it's a joint expenditure between water, sewer. Or sorry, wastewater, storm, and roads and parks.
Is it a battery or? Yeah,
This one is gasoline. We have tried a battery operated one in the past, but I believe it was quite a bit more. And then you get into the replacement cost of these large batteries, it's quite a bit.
What's the life expectancy on one of those?
I would probably say you're around 20 years. But maybe George might have some comments with that.
I would think 10 to 20 years. On our roadside, we have 2 or 3 spots that we need for ditches and sightlines. We always end up taking a big machine too, and people going with weed whippers. And we have a couple other locations now. With cemeteries, so.
Okay, that's for the intersection of the budget here. Public Works. So, the Public Works has increased, so overall, I'm just gonna, so first of all, we moved a number of different items around. So when we see a 66% increase, it's not necessarily all, it's not to do with wages and benefits. This is to do with the capital sections in here. And we'll walk through and explain a little bit of it, and you'll be able to see some of the projects, and then maybe some decision items here that council wants to take a look at. So the revenues are from road cut fees, which is minimal, $10,000. There's a building reserve for the HVAC systems, because this also, and there needs to be a better breakdown for this section as well, because the building facilities are also included in here. So there is some money that we've got coming from that reserve for that HVAC system. And then there's a summer student grant, and we haven't heard on what summer student is amount yet. It's we had put an estimate in of $5,000, and that's for 5 students at minimum wage for 10 weeks in the summertime. So we do have there could be additional funds that come in there. So to move to the expenditures, so the expenditures includes the wages, benefits, office supplies, training, administration of public works, the building maintenance and utilities, insurance, memberships, and dispatch. There are other small items such as mailbox replacements and equipment. So there are a few things, quite a few things in that 849,000. However, the bulk of it is the wages and benefits. The wages and the benefits, though, I would say this is the overhead. So this is just sort of the cost of a portion of this is our administration, not the actual work that's being done in the public works. So if they're doing works on the roads and bridges or the maintenance, etc., then that's built into the next part of the budget. So we're going to walk through all the different areas there. The biggest and vehicles and equipment is in here as well. So this is fuel, repairs, and vehicle licensing. The fuel isn't up very much, but the repairs for the radio and vehicle licensing, the repairs for the vehicles themselves is the aging fleet. And so that's the reason that there is some additional cost, but and I can, I don't know, George, if you want to speak to any of those, and we can talk about capital after.
Yeah, so I guess you're mentioning about aging fleet. Yeah, just some of our stuff here. In the capital, there's gonna be one loader in there. Well, there's quite a bit of training we have to do every year to keep up on, and when we talk about aging, some of our buildings, like we said, our building maintenance is in there, but every year we're not sure what we're gonna run into, and yeah, roads are aging, everything's aging kind of in our side.
we'll go to the capital list, which is actually on the next page, and there was some more detail in there. So I'll just run through quickly some of the revenues, and then I'll defer to George to talk about the capital items. So we have got money that comes, it's called the federal CCBF, but it's actually, it used to be called the gas tax fund, so this is the federal funding. And we get it from two different sources. We get it from directly to the township through the annual contract, but we also get funding through the county. Generally, this money goes into a reserve and then this money is pulled back out, which is so it doesn't go directly into the budget. It'll go to that reserve and come back out. And Val and I have done the estimates based on the numbers that we've seen. This is the allocation that's coming to the township for 2026. And we will clean up and do what we can with the 2025, whatever has happened in the 2025 budget with the bridges, etc. We'll have to figure that out, and it'll probably end up being financed. So, but just to talk to 26, so there is some money that's going to be spent on the two bridges that need to be installed. And we'll apply the CCBF for funding towards that, and there will still be a requirement for a small loan. Unless, of course, the installation comes in a little less. There's 50,000, we'll still be looking for a loan, and then sale of equipment. So some of the other items that George will speak to, there we're anticipating that there will be some resale value. So I'll let you speak to the bridges and the best one.
Yeah, so what the bridges, there is a contingency in those, so there could be a little bit coming back. We don't have any hiccups, put the bridges in when we get on Romans Road, we get our contingency feedback on that. There's no hidden things that we rose, so there could be some money coming back on that. This also, guess we'll just go down through the bridge installations. Two bridge installations are in Green and Bedford, and then also on there we have the grader leases. We have two graders that are leased, and one is due this year. So we were recommended to buy it out. Try to go forward, not be leasing out all the time. And then you'll see is also we have an excavator that's leased at this time. Be something in the future when it comes up to again for whether to be bought out or released. That second grader is 2 years out, one this year and then one 2 years. And then the last two plow trucks we got were through the Bank of Montreal. And then we're talking about the 210 would buy out the grader at the end of the lease. And the capital consulting for road projects is 50,000. Then our portion of the Dixie chopper, it's through parks, roads, storm, wastewater. As again, I said, we actually have a few cemeteries now that we have to do as well. And we have 3 or 4 intersections where we spend a couple days with weed eaters. I know last summer when it was hot, with students, they ended up burning up 2 to 3 weed eaters, just mom stuff we're doing. So that was something we wanted to put in. The trucks plus lights and radios, anything we replace, if it has to be fixed or if we replace a truck or you see the equipment. If the radio is good enough, we transfer it over, but some of the radios here are 30 years old, just depends on what piece of equipment they were in. So sometimes they have to be replaced for the new stuff. The loader was something we were wanting to replace in 2026. It's a 1988. Last year it did let us down for the first time. I know it's about $7,500 just in our rental for a loader for the 2 weeks, and a little bit that it was down. It has never given us any major motor transmission problems yet, but it is on borrowed time. It's been a great loader, but it is over 30 years old. Sidewalk machine, we bought in 18, and with our expansions, and it does all town, and it also does grass cutting in the summer. We'd like to purchase another one in the future here, put some in reserves, just because if it goes down, we're in a lot of quite a bit of buying because we don't have anything else that can do the sidewalks at this time. And the Massey tractor, would like to replace it in the future, but we just ended up doing the head on it, so I'd like to get a couple more years out of it before it goes. But it's getting up to be quite the experience. It's around 15 or 16 years old. So that'd be reserved for it. And then, the 2012 plow truck we got, it's getting to the point. It has the double frame in it that these years we're not gonna be able to safety it, and it has been a very expensive truck to keep on the road because it has one of our maxi force engines in it. You know, it's usually 25 to 35,000 a year just to keep it on the road. And I'd like to put some money towards reserves. For when we next year, because it takes 18 months still to get a truck. So that's how far you are out. A roadside mower, we get about 3 years on because they had to cut a pile of grass. It is due to be replaced this year. There would be money from it. When we replace it, there would be money after it. We'll put it out bids at tenders or traded it. Same with the loader. I forgot to mention that on the loader, there would be money coming back on that. And loans are Ridge Road, portion of downtown infrastructure. And past projects. Then our provincial grants. HW, SW project that was just announced that we'll be starting to work on. Showing top of finances.
Yeah, we put that in, so this is just to make sure that we've got earmarked the grant announcement, the 10.8 million. And then the balance, I've got at 4 million. These are all estimates. It all nets to zero. We'll know more. I have no idea the $1 million for the consulting versus the 13.8 for the contract. We need more details to, as we go through it, to get those. I just wanted to make sure those numbers are, that we didn't forget about the fact that we do have a lot of work that's going to be done in the next little while here. I'm just gonna back up just a little bit to talk a little bit more about, so those leases that we talked about on the previous page, the grader lease, 2 graders, excavator, and the 2 plow trucks. So because that was how we sort of did the stopgap in previous budgets, previous years, to make sure that we had the equipment, we had to do some financing. Now the costs for those financing are being built in, so that's $400,000 in the budget. Optimally, we would be looking, the reason that we got contributions to reserves and other lines is we're trying to get ahead of that. We're trying to build it so that we have money sitting in the reserve that will pay for those things instead of going to the bank or wherever the financing institution is. Because those costs for borrowing is a lot higher than if we actually have the money in the bank. And if you have the money in the bank, then you earn interest on that money until we go to purchase it. So it's a win-win. The unfortunate part in 2026 is that we're trying to do both at the same time. So that's why the costs are up. And so this is where we said that this, when we go back to, you know, what we're going to do with increases. Unfortunately, it looks like we will have to take a look at this section of the budget. Anything else? There's also the old loans as well, not just for the equipment, for the repayment of Ridge Road, and that work was done, I believe, in 2016. And then the downtown infrastructure, this is just the roads portion of that work that was done in 2024. The other section, the other portion of that loan actually shows up in the sewer budget, which is, we're going to have a conversation with them in a minute.
Did you break up? What is the lease payment on a grader, excavator, and a plow truck?
And yes,
Instead
yeah,
of just the one big number.
yeah, we are working on it. And on top of the 408, so the 408 is only the cost for the grader up to the end of March. And then the $210,000 is the buyout for that grader. So this budget assumes, instead of doing another lease for another grader, is that we would do the buyout this year and just keep that grader. That all needs to be assessed, but we needed to put some money in the budget. But Val's got the numbers, and we have to put something in the budget.
So for the excavator, do you want the, sorry, just to recap. What was it that you were?
What our payment is
For
each month or
for
the year.
annual, yeah,
Yeah.
for current leases. You have an excavator that's about 74,000. The grader is about 132,000. That's the 24 grader. 22 graders about 250,000, and there's 2 other leases, the 2 other tandems. One being a sorry, so I'm not sure what they are, but, so 82,893 and, 70,000 for the other Volvo. For a total of about 618,000, just for those. That's an annual.
Yeah, that would be for a full year. The,
Yeah.
the one grader is actually coming due in, like I said, March, so that's why only a portion of that is in it. And there's a separate line with the 210, so that comes out to what Val's number is.
It seems nice to you, George.
Um,
The graders, yeah.
250,000 a year we're paying for a lease.
So the one grader was over 4 years that they decided, so they're actually different, and the other grader's over 2, I believe, was it not?
I believe they're both.
And your excavator, I believe, is over 4.
I don't know that I have that in front of me at the moment, but they were fairly condensed leases. I think they're 72 months if I'm not mistaken, but the 2 Volvos were 72 months. I'm not sure about your grader, if they're an external lease. I'm not
So
sure.
the trucks were the same.
And we'll get a summary back to council for all the debt, so that's one of the things we just. And for today, but we'll show you a breakdown of what it's all for. Other questions for the equipment or post capital? There were at the bottom, if you take a look, and I don't know, George, if you want to speak to on page 26. There were some items that were delayed for future years. Again, this budget is actually a little down budget. This is the lower of what it was originally, so there were those 3 items. Do you want to speak to those last 3 items?
Yeah, so the truck. We're talking about the plow truck, we put that off just because it was a little worse than that at this time. And so we was wanting to put money in reserves to get started, get ready to replace it. And like I say, it's still up to 18 months to get a truck once you order the truck. Usually you can order it year before and you only have to pay for the chassis. You don't end up, it's not 18 till it comes in. You don't end up paying for the rest of the truck. So sometimes that works in your way it's laid out to be paid for. So there was a truck, Shelley, isn't that?
Yeah, bottom there, the Harold's Bridge.
Oh, sorry. So Harold Road Bridge was another bridge in our OSIN's report that came up this year. The 3 that we were replacing, the 2 this year, 1 last fall, were all ones that had 1 year left. Harold Bridge came in out of this year's OSIN's report. That it had failed and they'd given us 1 year on it. So that is the full price as of today to replace it with install and everything, bridge all done, ready to go. So it's something that we're gonna have to look at pretty hard in 27, because when I was talking to fellow that was pricing the bridge, he was in underneath looking at it, and he said that the bridge is not hanging on very far on the wing wall. It's just getting to that point where it's becoming unsafe, so that's probably one reason that it was failed in the instant. And the deck is starting to get holes in it. It was built in 1901, so it's done well, on the traffic.
Is that Northern Bridge or what, like this?
Yes,
So they've gone up.
they've been up and looked at it, yeah, so
But the price is gonna way up this thing.
on that bridge.
Yeah,
No, that's the bridge as of right now to replace that bridge.
but is that the equivalent?
That bridge is a little different, and it's gonna be a hair longer. The Henry Street Bridge, we've all seen, what it started to look like, your sides and everything on it. It's another bridge that, when I did talk about doing a temporary bridge, I mean, that was kind of around the figure they were talking. If you would have engineers in and before a whole cement bridge, the way it is now, it would be quite a bit more. That was just an idea of where you might be in 28, and the cost will go up a lot. I mean, now and then too, even on a replacement bridge, but I believe in our OSIP report, that bridge is in there like at 1.8 million. If you went to cement bridge right now, I'd have to look for 3 in there. So that's something to look in the future. And also, we looked at a lot of the urban out this year because of doing our big announcement there, what we're gonna be doing. This section just down here off North Street, and off the tracks and then Belleville Road. We're gonna have engineering costs and everything on that, you just did that, so I didn't put anything in urban roads at this time, just did lots of stuff and. We're one that needs to be addressed.
Questions of any of those? It is gonna look like there's not much in the urban roads this year, but again, there's gonna be lots of so we actually need to show us in now with that. Nature of projects. And then just to follow with public works, so look, quickly, I'll run through the different sections, so you know what's in it, but I'm not gonna go through in detail. A lot of these different sections are made up of wages and benefits, so. As I indicated before, there's overhead for public works, but there's actually the specific road projects, and then when the employees go, we're doing all the different work and they go doing something on a specific project, then they allocate it to whatever the different sections are, and they're showing up overall in this line here, so. And then if you want to stop, or there's any questions, or if George wants to add to this, I'll just run through it quickly first, and then we can go back and talk a little bit about one of the items. So maintenance on bridges and culverts, we've got $7,600, that's general maintenance. Roadside maintenance, this is to do with, I want to come back and talk about the roadside maintenance bit. This is tree removal, gravel, roadside mowing. The hardtop maintenance includes, this is for hardtop, there's Street Logics in here. This is for an asset management plan, so that's to review the roads and so we can get more data as to what needs to be done, and this is a requirement for some of the grants, etc. that we're getting coming up. There is $38,000 that we have put in the budget, even though we haven't got finalized yet, but I did see it now come through this morning. It looks like we're getting something from the pothole grant program that was just announced. So that $38,000 is hoping to offset the cost for that Street Logics, but mostly it's for the crack sealing and the frost heave repairs, which is regular maintenance. So that budget has not been reduced, even though it looks like it's actually just a grant, so that work will continue. The maintenance for the loose top includes wages again and calcium. There is the winter control maintenance is wages and road salt. The safety devices is wages, traffic signs and barrels. Then we have the construction project resurfacing, which is again another topic I'll come back to. And the annual gravel program is $295,000. We have the winter sand purchase, and that is $85,000. We talked just briefly there about urban roads not being done this year because of the Belleville Road project. Sidewalks are, it looks like it's down a bit, but it's not. What's happened is we're actually letting more sidewalk work to be done in 2026. Not everything got done in 2025, so we're going to move money that wasn't spent into reserve and do the work this year in 2026. So there's $100,000 of sidewalks in there. The Springbrook Road is again a previous year project, 2016 project, and we're just repaying ourselves. So that loan is our own internal loan. So we're repaying our reserve on that. Net traffic control, Ridge Road, we moved that in the capital. And the net traffic control is actually crossing guards. And at the very bottom is something called transit. So I'm just gonna back up to the top, and because I know I ran through that rather quickly. So when we talk about the roadside maintenance, there's actually a letter that was given out to councillors this morning. We just got this yesterday. There in 2025, there was an ice storm, And the municipal affairs and housing provincial branch had a program that you could make application, and the township did make application to try to get money recovered from those costs. So they are saying in the letter that we are eligible for up to $122,000 that we can get back for the cost for that, but we've already gone through one set of review and we're not quite sure that we're gonna get all of that. When they say it's gonna be audited, they will not cover basic, they will not cover regular salaries. They will only cover anything that you did during the ice storm that was in addition to regular. So if we had, you know, the regular full-time firefighters were working the regular shifts, that was not covered. But if they had extra volunteers that were out there, or chief was being paid for overtime for that, then those are the types of costs. The same with the public works, and contracted out some trees, and there were some other costs as well. They were all submitted to the province. In this particular line item for roadside maintenance, we have allocated $75,000. So that's being very conservative as to how much of the 122 we will actually get back. It is a 25 expense. We're gonna do the proper accounting for it. It's gonna go into a reserve and come back out, but that's what's helping reduce that roadside maintenance line, that from the 225 last year to the 142 this year. So next year, we're again gonna see another increase. The other line I wanted to talk a little bit more about was, and we'll come back to transit, but I really wanted to talk more about the gravel, resurfacing. And on the next page, you'll see, and I'll let Joy speak to this. This is the resurfacing program that's being planned in 2026.
Just to add one thing to our roadside, up there. So any guardrails that get broken or any damages, to signs and that, there's a certain part of that goes to roadside maintenance too, so that's to keep that in mind. So for our resurfacing, we did, we had a few more things on here, but we just knew it wasn't possible, so right now under resurfacing, our Lake Road and our Tuftsville Road and Wellman's Road, they were all spots where we dug out frost heaves and where the clay was coming up through the road. We were able to do some last year, but we just didn't have funding. So I would like to finish capping them off for now. We did look at, doing full spots and roads and that, but we just knew we weren't gonna have the money. And Barrett Road, that little short section there just started to get some holes, and it's was done. We were looking up, it was done about 18 years ago, so I was hoping to do that little short section, because right now we haven't had to do any patching in it, but it's getting pretty thin. And then in asphalt, Stirling Rawdon Road, there was a section at right at the boundary of the swamp there. There's some culverts that are starting to fail, and there was a section in there I put in here because that's one of our, that is our major road we have in the township. Most traffic, and it's a concern, and anyways, I put a spot in there that we could do at that swamp, the culverts, and get it all fixed up. And then Ridge Road, it was done in 2016. A lot of the new technology, this pavement preservation is where they will put a rejuvenator on a road. It's become something that a lot of places do. It is a good practice, but what it actually does is make that asphalt a bit more flexible again. Rejuvenation was in there, and softens it up so it will flex and not crack. Try to get another 5 or 6 years out of the surface. If anybody goes out Ridge Road in the last few days, you'll see quite a few cracks in it, and the way the frost got in it, it's got a rolly and everything else, but that is to help with that, to make it back flexible. And it's something that, 5 to 7 years after the road's done, it's paying off. There's some studies I looked at. A few of the counties around here are doing it, and they say that they think it's well worth it. Put that road in, it being that it was our newest road that was done. And then Maple Road, if any of you have been down it, it's pretty much getting back to go back to gravel. And it's not just the cost of pulverizing it, because when you want to put it back to gravel, that material, it just built the wear and tear on it over time. As soon as any you can go and grade it, but as soon as it gets wet, it will turn quite sloppy. So that's also putting 3 inch left of gravel on it, putting it back. And I know there's some other roads in the township that are get to that point as well. And just for just so you see, if we were to do that older section, Tuftsville Road, which I originally spoke at, you'd get 340,000 for the 26. So
What's the older section?
that would be right from the highway here at Boyers up to where we started on the hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to do that this year, George?
Well, I just had it in there because, you know, we'd like to get started some of these things, but I mean, it all costs money, right? So, it's in there, but we can't do everything.
There was another line item that I didn't speak to in here, and that has to do with crack sealing as well.
So the last couple of years, we've hired a company to do the crack sealings. They have a crew with been pretty good. Last year, their machine, when they were to come here, had an issue with it burned up. So we did end up renting a crack sealer ourselves and attempting to do it. It's something I keep in the budget for crack sealing. We may still hire it out if we have enough works out, that we have enough labor force here at the time. We may try doing some ourselves again. We were a little bit later in the year doing it than when I would like to have done it, but we weren't, we didn't know at the time that we were gonna get kind of hung up that we weren't gonna be able to have our other guys do it, so. Yeah.
Another item in here, so when we talk about the resurfacing, George spoke about, included in that line item, if we want to go back on page 27, you'll see the net cost is actually 582,000, and it was 626. We've allocated the Ontario Community Infrastructure Grant, OSIP, so that is the annual amount that we get for our infrastructure from the provincial government. We've allocated it all into the resurfacing. And then we have to report back how we spend on it. So that allocation of that money, again, it's an attachment that's in your book. So you can see how the allocation is made, but it's based on the information that the township has submitted with its asset management plan and the annual core. It's a core survey, and you list all of the items. Yeah. So the core of that report that we send that CRV or something like that, we send it into the province. And that number for $195,000 for that OSIP grant seems remarkably low, considering the amount of work that is done here, and especially with the amount of work that needs to be done. So that was one of the reasons originally we had put into the budget that we would try to get an asset management position, and we would try to split it with our neighboring municipalities because they're all in the same boat. And we would get that asset management position with some new software potentially to try to really get our numbers to be more correct, what's in the asset management, and that would help us to get more money from the province. But anyway, we'll keep working on how we can try to achieve an asset management person and how we can try to achieve a change with the software so that we can drill down on it a little bit better, but that's not included in the budget right now. So we've only got so many things we can do this year, so that's come out, but we did put the OCIF money in the budget on that line. The other thing on this page, on the very bottom line, which is very tiny at the bottom, it's $5,000 for transit. So that's an earmark. We have to have more discussions with our transit partners, and there's a couple of them that are close by, and we haven't done anything on that yet. So in order to just make sure that we earmark something, I put $5,000 in there because there's a need in our community and we're hearing it. And we've also been asked for a contribution from one of the partners that we have. So that's what that $5,000 is in right there. We can come back and talk about it a little bit more, but we don't know enough at this time. I just didn't wanna have to come back and ask for money later, council, it will cost money, so. I just wanted to make sure we had something earmarked.
Okay, Shelby, just want to clear the community infrastructure grant. So that's something that we do an application for, supplying them with the asset management information or.
Well, technically, it's an allocation, so there's a pot of money that the government has for all municipalities.
Right.
But just, we need to verify what we need, and they calculate based on what we submit in these annual. Valuation returns on what our inventory costs. It's not, but it does change, and then they also have, and I'm not sure if ours has been going up or down, but they do not allow it to go below 95% of what you have each year, so we will get money anyway. But we have to make this application, and then what happens is they take that big pot of money in the province and they allocate it against all the municipalities based on all the information again, and that's how we end up with a smaller number. So, but the better your data, sometimes the better that number is, and that's why we want to push to get an asset management review and somebody that's looking after our assets on a regular basis. The other part of that too is you have to remember, it's not just the assets that we have, but we've got a lot of developments that are coming up, so. With all this planning that's coming, we've got roads that are gonna get things, water and sewer, et cetera, that's gonna get turned over to the municipality. And we have to track all of those assets. We have to make sure that, you know, you get a road that's, maybe it's a couple of years old because the development's gone on for some time. When we take ownership of that road, it becomes our asset, then we also now need to add that into our asset management plan because there's no money that comes with it. We have to maintain that. So we need to make sure that that asset information is up to date. And that growth will help pay, update the OCIF money, the money that, or the grant, and hopefully then that will also help us. Everybody's growing now, so still one piece of the pie. Does that help? Is it? Yeah. I mean, it's,
Better results.
Well, yeah, no.
Well, we need to come up with something where they give us millions, not hundreds of thousands. So that's what that, we gotta get, we're not getting it with this sustainability plan.
Well, that was the thought, just wondering, you know,
That doesn't even like the, yeah, that little bit, it helps, but. Look, what we wanna spend,
our numbers are fairly accurate to asset management. I mean, it's not like we're.
we're just trying to make it better, because they just, the company may not have given the correct info, they want better info, right? So that's the idea.
I think, and Matt can speak a little bit more to it, because he has more detail, but it sounds as if we haven't really had any updates since 24, like there's been some information that's been added, but it's also that the sections that they're taking the roads in, I believe, are bigger than what, like if they were broken down more to what the sections are that are actually being repaired, that might make the numbers a lot higher, but I don't know if there's anything if you want to answer that.
We've been making updates to the asset management software.
Yeah.
As far as the plan, we had an updated plan this past year, which the plan hasn't been updated in a while, but. In the background, all the assets are being updated as they're being. Switched to being new, or if they're sold, or acquiring any new assets, but. A lot of what Tracy does is updates the asset condition, and if there's any new assets to update them in the system. Definitely a new software that would make it more palatable for staff. Would be a huge asset, that would help generate better reports as well.
Is that anywhere in the budget or a future budget?
We're having conversations with some of the suppliers that we could have and what we could potentially be working with to see, so, but it's not, there's no new number that's in the budget at this time.
The province is aware of the problem. That they are looking at putting together a more standardized program, so that then they get to ask. On the spreadsheet. Speaking of the moment, so there is a possibility of bringing order.
That'd be good.
That's like a huge chunk of the budget, so, you're gonna keep going and we'll see where we get, again, in 7:30 to 12:30. I'm still with that. Okay, so our next chunk is the streetlights. The streetlights are area rated, so this gets added on to each of the 2 different wards tax bill. It's not a huge amount, but just so you know, the Ward 1 expenditures are the same as what they were previous, the $4,000 to be spent. And Ward 2, the streetlights, there is an increase there for an additional light replacement from 35 to 45,000. George, you can say what that light is, which lights?
Well, there's always a regular streetlights. We have failures every year. There was the decorative lights we put in, I guess that'd be a year ago. We had one that has failed, that was from a power supply issue. So we reordered one to. I'm just gonna say tongue in cheek, maybe warranty, but one that we have to replace.
So the net comes to 0 because that's that levy, that's a special charge that's on the tax, bill. It's not part of the general rate. The garbage collection, this now begins some good stuff, so garbage collection. These are, again, they're area rated, so the net is 0. There's the Ward 2 expenditures and Ward 1. I'm not if you want to just explain why there's a different rate for those 2 wards.
Through the chair, just the different collection. So you have Rawdon is collected every other week, and then in town here we're collected every week. So there's a difference price with that. With the Ward 2, you'll see that there's a difference from last year. It would be 765 to 85,760. So that now includes the garbage bin at Oak Lane and Callahan Rapids. So there's a garbage collection there. So we have a bin at the end of the road. So that's very significant from previous years there. We are in contract for a garbage collection. So it's just it's going to come from our current contract with E360.
The next section is landfill and disposal. This used to be called waste. You may have seen that in previous years. We changed the name, so it actually reflects exactly what we're talking about here. So there's 2, the landfill and disposal section. So talk about the revenues first. So the revenues that are coming in here is bag tag revenue. So the current bag tag revenue, there's no expected increase in that rate. Again, we will bring the fees and charges back, so that may change. But the increase from 175 to $220,000 is based on, it more accurately reflects the actual. So the actual money that we're bringing in is more than what we've been budgeting in the past. So we just made it's not as much. We still got a little bit of conservative estimate in there, but it does help with the offset the costs. So the landfill and disposal fees. So this includes wages and benefits. We have landfill attendance included in here. It also includes construction material removal and tipping fees for other areas, or where we dump the garbage. Then we also have included in this budget is only 1 hazardous waste event. Normally there has been 2 in the past. Because now we have to change, we have to pay for those, so we'll have to pay for the events. Then we've only included, in order to try and save money in the final tax levy, we've only put 1 mobile event in here. This also includes groundwater monitoring, which is done through a company called JP2G. And we have vehicles and repairs as well as insurance, all make up this whole section of the budget. The mobile hazardous events and the hazardous waste collection, it's a contract that is with the city of Belleville, and it was previously covered through Quinny Waste Solutions. That's been decommissioned. So this the township cost. That's one.
Just to add on to what Shelley's explaining, Typically in this account, we didn't see these hazardous waste, so we've included it into the waste GL. This year, so we do have the one mobile hazardous waste event, and then we are in contract with Belleville for the depot for hazardous waste. So that came into effect with the dissolution of Quinny Waste Solutions. So we are in contract with Belleville for that site. For the depot location, and just to know, I looked into options for a green bid program that was requested, so. And that was probably one of the first things that got cut for the first year of the implementation. Which included providing everybody a bin. And then looking at the tipping fees and collection, it was $240,000 a year for the first year, so. Looking at everything else that's going on, that was the first thing to get cut.
So every year or every other year, we have to do a report on landfills. Is that included in this number?
Yes, this is, the two reports are included. Rawdon has to have a report done for environmental compliance every year, Stirling is every other. So your consultant fees capture those two reports as well as the annual sampling requirements and the ECA.
And again, going back, when we talk about disposal, that's not the garbage collection, it's disposal of anything that comes from landfill. And as Matt was saying, is that, so if there is only one event that is done, hazardous waste collection event that's done in the township, there's always that they can go down, they can take, transfer, it's not like they're. It's only gonna be once a year that they can never get rid of any hazardous waste, they can still, if there's an agreement, they can go to the balance site. Recycling. So this is changing in my team a bit. Recycling changed with the overall change that happened with the province, changing it to producers are picking up the cost where it used to be that the cost of recycling was actually picked up through the municipalities, and ours in Stirling Rawdon was done through the Clean Waste Solutions, which again is dissolved. So with that dissolution, it's broken down a few things. So there's a couple of things here, and that can better describe it, but there are bins that we have for recycling, but we also have curbside pickup. And that's for the bins at the dump, we'll talk about, but the curbside pickup is for all residents, so general for residents for home garbage. It was an additional cost for non-eligible properties, and those non-eligible properties are not-for-profits, which includes churches, daycares, that type of thing, and businesses. So the cost for that last year, there was a breakdown, so that was allocated special area rate, and the ability to do that is labor intensive, and it doesn't really cover. Like it never's done accurately, you can't, because of the turnover of businesses and all of those not-for-profits, it's a very labor intensive exercise. So the change this year has been to put on the cost for those non-eligible properties into the tax levy, but it's offset with a portion of the money that's coming from the Quinny Waste Solutions. So there was, when the money that was dissolved, there was a payback that came to the township. So a portion of that is coming back to the to help offset and pick up for those non-eligible properties. And the money, so at the landfill, there are the bins, and Matt can talk about that, but in order for us to have those bins, there's a cost to the township to get them emptied, as well as the fact that anybody that's using those has got free pickup. So they don't necessarily need to go to the dump to drop it off. So in order to mitigate the costs that we have for those bins, we're recommending, and this will be in the fees and charges, is that there's going to be a $2 per vehicle charge for anybody that brings recycling to the landfill. So that will be an issue, an item for another day, but we do need approval through the budget process in order to implement that. So in other words, if you come to the landfill and you're dropping off your garbage and you got recycling, If there is recycling in it, then there'd be a $2 charge in order for dropping the $2. Or for dropping anything into that bin. And your other option is you put it into a bin at the end of your driveway and it'll be picked up for free. So unfortunately, we were trying to be fairly creative and trying to come up with a solution, but I'll let Matt speak more about this, especially because.
I think Shelley touched on most of it. We did have the depot collections for the recycling. We were getting compensated by RLG. That compensation has been pulled away from us, so now it's 100% on the municipality to pay for any recycling depot. As Shelley mentioned, we're trying to discourage people from using the depot itself, as everyone has free collection curbside. It seems to be a service that people really use at the depot sites, so we still do have the bins there, but of course it does come at a cost. And that's why we're trying to implement a user-based system with that. Like we mentioned, trying to discourage the depot use for the recycling, as it's costly. We do have a contract with E360 for the bins for a 3-year term. So there would be a termination cost with opting out of that contract. We do need to enter into contract with, I would recommend HGC for the disposal processing of the depot recycling. So right now, previously we were having that done through RLG and Circular Materials. They were taking care of the disposal costs. And since that is now terminated, it's on the municipality now. So it was going to Belleville. Right now it's going to Napanee to E360 site because they're the ones hauling it. But it's going to be more cost effective if we go into contract at least for a year with HGC to have E360 take the recycling depot contents to Belleville.
When this program has been changed, when we made the agreement on bins and that, we were under the impression that part of that cost was covered. So we made the agreement. They've since changed the rules, which is why this is a little more complicated than it needs to be.
So who's picking up the Legion and the churches?
That's being done under our other funding. We're not differentiating.
Just to explain, so there's eligible waste stream, which is primarily residential, and it's being collected by E360 under contract from Circular Materials, and that is all paid by the province. And then there's another contract with E360 and the municipality solely, and that's for non-eligible. And that is your industrial, commercial, institutional, non-for-profit churches, municipal buildings, that sort of thing. And that's collected by E360 on contract with the municipality.
It's not a separate route. It's not the state route. It's just
So
additional bills.
that's in our budget. That cost.
Yeah, so that cost is 51,000.
What, did you not say that the money that we got back from 20 waste, you're gonna compensate for the non-eligible people? Or no?
Yes,
Thank
there
you,
is,
that wrong?
there is $20,000 that is being offset, so as Matt said, it's 51,000 is what the estimated cost is for the whole collection. We're gonna offset it with 20,000 coming out of Clean Waste Solutions. The reason we didn't put more in is because there's not that much in that, flattened in our reserve right now. But we also want to allocate it again for next year. We want to make sure that we got a little bit each year coming out of that reserves. Cover some.
So. Should we not treat the non-eligible program as we're treating the people that are gonna go to landfill?
That was where I was going back to, if we put it on a property tax bill, it's really hard to track exactly which of those, like what is being collected. So if you've got a property that's got a residential upstairs and a commercial downstairs, then you have to try and figure out how to put that on the tax bill. So that's why we're saying not to put it on the tax bill. The other thing is some of those, and we can talk about it further, but some of the agencies, et cetera, that we would be charging, so the gym and the Lions Club and the churches and the daycares and things like that, those we have to charge as well. And it is somewhat in the township's best interest to collect that, rather than to try and charge those agencies back again, so. But it's also in the township's best interest as well to try to collect the money of pay for the commercial and industrial as part of the greater compensation. Commercial and industrial taxpayers actually pay more on their taxes, so they have a higher a levy that's actually that they pay, and so they are already paying more taxes. And they have less services than residential, so the benefit for the township to have a commercial, if we had more commercial and industrial taxation in the township, that would be better for us. Then we would actually have lower residential rates. So by trying to hit them again with this recycling, which is a small amount, doesn't to me make any sense. It makes more sense is that it's covered by the entire township. That's why it's being recommended by council, is that we put it on just on the general levy.
And how do they not get as many services than what the resident gets? Just explain that a little bit. To me, it really don't mean much, but I just wondered, what are they not entitled to as a resident, the commercial people?
They would get regular maintenance, but they would get the same services as what we get. But for a business or a commercial industry, you would have somebody that's coming into that for just a certain portion of the day, and you may have like 50 or 75 employees that are coming in there, so it's not the same as having 75 or 50 residences. I have to walk through, I'm not explaining myself very well, but they do have, they technically would have less services than what a residence. I'll get back to it.
Well, they get fire, they get police, they get everything. If it's called a commercial person, so that's why I'm saying how do we, doesn't matter for this discussion, but saying they get less service, I'm not sure. They just might have to pay more,
So,
so
yeah, they
it's
get.
probably the same service.
same service, would pay more.
Pay more because they're commercial. I understand that, all right, just don't. The other part of it.
Maybe I'll try to just explain more about
It's to do with the ratios and that they pay a higher proportion share of the tax. Due to the tax rates.
But I'm not saying, well, they're not paying higher, I'm saying they get service. That's what I'm talking about, so they still get the service like everybody else, they're not getting less service, they're just paying more for the same service. Pretty well, that's how that, because they're a higher tax, pretty sure, like you said.
Recycling, so this. We had talked about next page, which is page 3, just about all of those. Changes to recycling. The cemeteries, there's no change here, however, we do have a deputy clerk looks after it, so. And the clerk's department's gonna be taking a look at how the cemeteries are and what we've got for the fees and charges. We'll do a review this year, but nothing is changed in the 2026 budget. Recreation and parks. Okay, so, total recreation, this is broken down again, similar to the other departments. So the revenues, there's a small increase of the fee revenues, but we need to review all of the fees. The fees and charges all needs to come back. The expenditures for recreation includes the wages and benefits, materials, equipment. And we did in 2026 do a reduced cost for contracted services, and that's based on actuals. So there could be more costs. We have to do a little bit more breakdown as to what we're actually charging there, or what we're using the contracted services for. And then the capital is shown down below. So we've got money. So this is actually what has come forward from previous years. So just to talk about, there is a reserve of $82,000, and there is a contribution from development charges. There was a $200,000 revenue line last year, and we weren't quite sure exactly where it came from, but it looked like development charges, so we're estimating that this money in a reserve for a portion of this, and we have to take a look at the DCs. I'm not sure that there's that much money in reserves, but we're hoping that maybe these capital items might be a little bit lower. And I'm gonna let George speak to the 3 capital items.
So, clay ball diamond. Something that we were looking at last year and we had planned on doing. Contractor, didn't get in here before winter came a little earlier than he thought. And so anyways, that is still one of our goals this year, so to put the services in. And then, we would need 1 groomer. The north field has a groomer, but we would need a groomer down here for the south. On 1 little tractors to groom the ball field. And then, the Dixie chopper we talked about that earlier about the autonomous lawnmower. And, which I think would be handy. And then at the very bottom there, we did talk to council about a light being put in. I did get some pricing on that. One contractor, and I asked another one. This with him as well, but I shall kind of a rough idea where we would be on that.
This is for the dog park.
The dog park in Washington, where we're gonna put 1 pole in, there were 2 lights. There was a complaint about not enough light.
We could probably include the big project. French city.
That's a possibility.
Just as a questionable sports fan, the reason for a clay ball diamond. I know we talked about this before, I just can't remember.
Well, I guess that's kind of the way everybody's been going now in sports. They've gone away from crusher dust. Whether it's from tearing up your pants and getting those bloody knees used to, a lot of them have gone to the play ball fields. It seems to be what sports fields are going to. I don't know that I can really give you an explanation exactly why, whether I call it a trend or.
I'm more asking just the need for it as opposed to a wish list item.
I was gonna say more of a want. I do, our ball field in the north does still hold some Ontario tournaments for softball. Most fields are like that now, and down here in our south field, we do get a lot. We do have a men's ball league there, plus several slow pitch or 3 pitch teams as well. So it was kind of a thing that they would like. So, and it was brought to the. I guess the thing is, it was brought to the rec committee, and it got passed to the rec committee, and then on to council.
Are they doing all 3 diamonds in, or
Just 2. The main one in Springbrook, the lower diamond.
not doing the upper one?
No, the upper diamond this time would not be done.
It's just a big number.
So there aren't any light structures or anything like that that's being done. It'll just be general maintenance for this year. If there are any, we'll take a look, and we have to do a review of our Parkland reserve Parkland fees. That would be for new developments, and maybe that would help offset if there are any changes to play structures. So, and again, a long-term financial plan would be very helpful, so you can see all of these things and other things that need to come forward on a longer term basis, so we can figure out how to fund some of those. So I'm going to go through, we're pretty close to 12:30, so I'll go through some of these other items, and then we can come back after lunch and talk about what some of the different items are. So the next one is community hall. So I'm sorry, I don't have more detailed information on that, other than there was $1,200. Let's see. There, there's 2 things. It was community hall. There's been no change from the budget. We just used the same amount as last year. Stirling Theater, again, this one, no net change has been planned. But the change over last year, so there was a big project that was done at the Stirling Theater in 24 and 25. And so there looks like there was spillover costs in 2025, but no capital work is being anticipated at the theater at this point in time. So this $20,000 is for ongoing maintenance and small maintenance items as well as insurance. The next page, page 37, is Stirling District Community Center. So this budget was already approved by the Stirling District Community Center board back in November. And the net changes due mostly to wage and benefits and utilities. It also, the budget includes their costs for training, insurance, equipment, and building maintenance. I haven't put the details in here. You'll see them, it is an attachment onto the end. And the manager for the arena is more than willing to come up and talk about the budget if there is interest in trying to take a look at it, but it's $5,600 increase the cost for our requisition for this, and that's split amongst with other 3 other municipalities. The next one is the public library. And again, this was already pre-approved with the Stirling Library Stirling Rawdon Library Board. And the net cost changes is wages and benefits in their requisition line. That there is a line that's here that is new, and that is the cost. So the township is responsible for the building, and so there's a $4,500 new line item here for a sprinkler system that is being requested. And the again, a separate presentation by the chief librarian can be held in the next budget meeting, or even, you know, later today. She said she's always available. Their budget is down at the bottom. But with that, those are, sorry, one more, that's planning. I think, yeah, planning is, there's no changes, or sorry, there's a small change here with planning. What we've done is we've left the planning application piece. So planning is now being moved back to a lot of work is being done with the Hastings County. Although our clerk's office is doing, you know, as the applications come through, they're reviewing them, and then there's discussions, and we have our planning meeting as well. But we have reduced the amount that's in here for consulting fees because we now have this agreement with the county. So again, it's an estimate because we haven't really been through a full year of it, so that's what the reduction is here. And anyway, the other rest of the cost are sort of planning fees. When we do the review of all of the fees, we will take a look at the planning fees as well. There may be some additional costs that we can recover. I know in the last few days, we've had some discussions about some of the fees that are being billed back to the developers, et cetera, and the administration that goes with some of that. So we may be asking council to approve a small charge on some of that work that is being done for those developers here. It would be negligible, but at least it would help recoup some of the costs we have. And that's pretty much it for planning. Now economic developments. I think what we might want to do is stop here, because after we do finish lunch, there's a conversation that we're going to have about Canada Day. And I'm going to call in our economic development officer, and she's going to walk through a couple of the plans, and we can answer questions on that. So with that, if you want to, I don't know how long you want to break for lunch.
Order.
It's here.
So we'll come back at 1 o'clock.